Hi, welcome to the presentation today. My name is Joe Brown. We're going to be talking about using Microsoft Azure bots and AI, artificial intelligence, to help automate your DevSecOps environment. Again, my name is Joe Brown. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Xgility. Earlier in my career, I was a worldwide cloud strategist for a large value-added reseller. I was a very early adopter of cloud technologies, primarily early on in the IaaS space. And I was the founder of a company that I ran and operated for 15 years, which was became the Azure Public Sector Partner of the Year in both 2015 and 2016. And so I've got a long history in the Azure space and cloud environments. So first, let's talk a little bit about and define what DevOps is, because it's the critical piece of what we're talking about today. Really, it's the intersection of a set of tools, processes, and people that are all brought together to create a CI/CD process and use it to rapidly develop software features and applications. All of this is built inside of an automated wrapper that makes it a very efficient way to deliver software features and applications for an organization. So what is DevSecOps, which is slightly different than DevOps? Really, it's the introduction of security within the CI/CD pipeline and processes at every step along the way. It helps to apply security controls at the application and infrastructure layers, and it helps to very rapidly identify and remediate threat vectors within application code. The benefits of using a DevSecOps approach include the following. Security posture at the code level is much improved because code is evaluated, scanned, and remediated while it's in the development process versus waiting until it hits the general public for consumption. Although it's also continuously monitored at that public level, and then remediations are done very rapidly with the secure DevSecOps environment. This supports a continuous software delivery method, just like standard DevOps does. It also tends to develop a faster resolution path for detected security issues that you run into when the code does go public. And that's done through a strong collaboration amongst the developers, software security folks, and operations teams, the DevSecOps team, ultimately. This continuous software delivery model helps to deliver features much more quickly than a standard application development model would, and ultimately results in a more stable operating environment for the applications and for the development process due to the process rigor that's wrapped around it. And also due to the fact that automation is employed in many, many aspects of the DevSecOps model. Automation is at the core of DevSecOps, and ultimately, in order to have a well-oiled machine that delivers an agile pipeline for the software developers and have security baked in at every step along the way, automation is an absolute must. So let's talk about some of the challenges that are faced, the DevSecOps teams faced, and just overall the idea and model of DevSecOps. Well, common challenges that we hear when we engage with our clients, one of the biggest ones is, number one here, striking an equitable balance between the development organization and the security rigor that is being put around the CI/CD pipelines. That's a difficult thing to do, but when you develop a collaborative team approach to the software development process, you can tend to break down those organizational barriers and the finger pointing that occurs in more siloed organizations. One of the challenges that is really, really difficult to overcome when you're working in this type of an environment is ensuring that all the people that are participating in it understand the basic governance policies and processes that they need to follow in order to be able to be consistent around configuration management and just generally with processes. Because a lot of times manual processes, if they haven't been automated, will be worked around in order, as developers will tend to find the path of least resistance and what they believe to be the fastest route to get things done. Particularly in the provisioning and deprovisioning of development assets and resources, developers tend to think they know the best way to do it and the best configurations to use, et cetera, and so they tend to kind of shortcut typical manual processes and do it the way they want to. A lot of times there's difficulty in moving code from environment to environment. So for example, dev to test to staging to production. Those things can be hard, and as I said, sometimes developers have their own way of doing things and they don't always follow the rules. And all of this can lead to conflicts between the development, security, and operations teams, which ultimately results in higher costs, downtime, outages, and application vulnerabilities that otherwise could be avoided. So we think there's a better approach, and I think that after today's presentation, you'll probably agree with me. We have started to use, and we believe that Azure Bot Framework and Power Virtual Chatbots on the Power Platform are a better way to offer your developers a 24/7 support assistant to take care of automating some of their lifecycle requirements around provisioning, deprovisioning of their development environments. These dialogue-driven bots can be made available through Microsoft Teams very easily in a native way. They could be published on a standard web page, or they could just be a standalone client that can be programmed with a curated set of resources that are pre-approved for the developers to use. And you can introduce in a very sophisticated way, but not difficult way, artificial intelligence by using that allows natural language to create dialogue-driven user experience and interface that will help to automate the full life cycle of the development environments. And this can be done with simple parameters that software developers and security engineers all agree upon. So if you think about that in terms of governance, it would be a set of servers, a set of resources associated with those servers, particular software configurations, baked in security tools, things of that nature that everyone agrees on. And the good news is that unlike developers, bots will always follow the process. They don't try to figure out a new way around it. So really, what is a bot? I've talked a lot about this so far, but the reality is that we've all used bots in the past. Most of the time we see them on web applications. And they're really kind of dialogue-driven interfaces where in the background, repetitive and simple tasks are being performed without any direct human intervention. Users can converse with bots using basic text, interactive cards, which are just kind of like prompts along the way. And now you can even use speech to interact with chatbots, which is a pretty cool way to do it. Chatbot interaction can be quick question and answers, or it can be very sophisticated conversation-based approach that intelligently provides access to a variety of services. Let's talk about bots in the everyday world today and kind of how you're probably used to using them. I have a really great Thai restaurant up the road from my office that I love going to. And the other day, I thought about it. I should, get online and order some Thai food, and I'll get it delivered. So I went to their website, and lo and behold, there's a bot I can use called ArtiBot that I can go in and make my order from. Well, I found this really interesting, and this is an example of a card-driven interface where I can open it up And instead of poking my way through the website to find out where I do my online ordering at, I'm presented with a set of options very quickly that are really representative of the menu on the website, but ultimately gets me to where I want to go much faster than me trying to read and find out where the online ordering menu is. And so I think that's a great example of how everyday use of chatbots can make my life a whole heck of a lot easier. And it gives me, as I said before, a curated set of options to go to, where the website owner, or in this case, the restaurateur, wants me to choose one of these items. Another example is at the Microsoft store. I happened to go on the Microsoft store the other day, and I was looking for a new business laptop to replace the one I have today. And so I opened up the bot they had on their site, and they have a card-driven approach to theirs, where they have a couple of options here. One of the things I did was I started the bot by just typing in start. You'll see that in the red box there, or gray box, sorry. And then I chose business use because that was what I wanted. The bot then directs me to answer another set of questions. Do you want sales and orders or technical support? I choose sales. Then they then ask me, do you want to do this via chat, or would you rather have a phone call with someone at the store? I chose chat to keep on path here. The next thing that happened is Jason was put on the line with me, where I connected with a real person. Now, in this case, Jason is a real person, but doesn't necessarily have to be. This is where you could use natural language driven interface to simulate a person and actually have the chat AI environment really take care of all this for you. So he asked me my name, ask how he can assist me, and I write out what I'm looking for. I give him some basic parameters, and very quickly, Jason comes back to me and says, this is the option for you for this particular device. This could have taken me hours or longer to maybe poke through the whole website to figure out which ones are available that met my basic criteria. Instead, Jason was very quickly, easily able to promote one and put it right in front of me, give me the opportunity to very quickly buy it, which improved my customer satisfaction dramatically, and quite frankly, did it with a lot less support than normally would be used by in retail store environment. So let's look really closely at the bot components that are available. This is on the Azure Bot Framework interface. There's a lot of different ways to look at chatbots and things they can do. And if you look at the channels bubble in the top left there, you'll see that there's a variety of applications that have automatic use of the bot framework. You can see there Microsoft Teams is present. You can see Slack is there. You can see web pages and Skype and Messenger and all kinds of different applications have native controls that the bot service can plug into. And then if you look at the input side, which is the middle bubble on the left, you'll see that there's a variety of ways that you can interact with these chatbots. And then below that, the devices that the stuff can run on. A huge variety of devices that these chatbots can run on. On the right-hand side, you'll notice that these are all the different places and connections that can be reached out to and connected to from that cognitive service. There's a tremendous amount of capability to expand on these and integrate with a variety of different systems on the other side. So let's dig into a customer example, which I think is really the most important part to share with you today. I think it's the most interesting because it's a real world situation where we've put this technology to use. So Xgility was bidding on a solicitation with the Department of Education, a sub-agency in it. And it was an O&M contract for a platform that we do a lot of work around. And one of the areas of the contract solicitation included support for 30 software developers. And some of the things we learned during the solicitation that were present in the solicitation is that it was currently being housed in a standard virtualized data center environment on VMware. It had a fixed amount of resources available for those developers. And there were some requirements around it that you needed to provision things and support in order to provision things, you needed to submit support tickets. After we ultimately won the contract, we learned some other things about the environment. Developers regularly complained about lengthy times to provision assets in the environment, and there was a lot of discussion around how inefficient the environment was to manage, maintain, and anytime you needed to make a change to it, it was pretty challenging. And so what we proposed in our solution that we put forward to the government included a modern approach to DevOps that was going to be fully Azure-based, with effectively limitless resources available to the developers, minus the fact that there was a budget cap there we had to apply to make sure they didn't overrun. We were able to give them a set of Azure resources that were fully integrated with our identity management solution they already had, with their VPN solution that they were already using, and ultimately we single-honed it to the Department of Education network so that you had to be an authenticated user within that network in order to be able to get to the DevOps environment in order to be able to maintain the level of security that we need to. The developers were able to leverage the CI/CD pipeline tools that they already had and were using very easily. We didn't have to force them into any Azure tools that they didn't want to use. They were worked with us to help define the processes they wanted, and we stood up their environment very, very rapidly. This is where the innovation came in. In the past, the developers, as I said, were required to submit a support ticket for provisioning anything they needed in the environment or making any changes to the VMs or infrastructure or otherwise to support their efforts. And so we instead developed a chatbot-driven interface that performed these simple environmental lifecycle orchestration tasks without any human interaction. And it went over really, really well. The customers really, really loved it. The developers really loved it because they could do things in the middle of the night, work when they wanted to, and they didn't have to worry about somebody answering a support ticket in the middle of the night to stand up a new development environment. So it built some serious efficiency into their ability to deliver software in a more timely fashion. So let's talk about and show the developer dialogue with the chatbot really quickly. Now this is a mock-up a little bit, so some of it is a little bit driven by the speech that I wanted to put into it, but ultimately it's representative of what we're doing. So this chatbot, it comes up, and the first thing it does is ask me my name, so I put my name in, and it knows how to address me going forward. It says, what can I do for you, Joe? I want a new development environment. Okay, and this is where it begins to offer me a curated set of resources that have been pre-approved, and everyone has agreed to them being available to the developers. And so these resources have the right security posture. They have the tools baked into them that need to be there. They have the right amount of resources associated with them. All of that's already ready to go. So the chatbot asks me which one of these I want to choose. Ultimately, I choose number one. That's a SharePoint server, and I confirm that with the bot. And then it asks me, how long do I want these resources available to me? And you can see here, this is where governance is applied around these resources. If you look at, I've only been offered a maximum of either 36 hours or 3 days, if I want them for days instead of hours. And I have to choose the amount of time. And the bot then takes it a step further and tells me, do you want to, or asks me, if I want a time limit warning on the resources that I'm using. So I very quickly type in 2, because that's the number of days I want, I want it measured in days. And then I say I want 3 days, 5 of 3, and yes, I want a time limit warning. And that's the natural language aspect of what we're doing. And then it comes back to me and says, okay, well, 3 days with a time limit warning, I agree, yes. And then the next step here is actually something that you probably can't see on the outside, but the chatbot then tells me, hey, do you want us to check in your code for you in source safe and also send a notice to the security ops team to complete the code scan after they're done? Now, if you think about this, normally a developer would have to go through the process of checking their code in, and then they would have to put a support ticket, and all that stuff would be manual items that the developer would have to do. How many times do you think the developers automatically do that stuff without hesitation right as soon as they finish writing the code? Probably not all the time. Probably not very frequently. They probably go get a cup of coffee or go to lunch or something like that. Maybe a day later, they end up checking their code in and notifying the security ops team to do their code scans. In this case, the bot can do it for them automatically when they finish up using the environment. And then the bot tells them that their environment is going to automatically be archived as well. And we chose that as one of the features and processes in the CI/CD pipeline because we wanted to very easily be able to replicate deficiencies in the code that might be identified in the QA step. And so when the environment's archived, the QA folks can very easily go in, perform their QA against that environment, check it. If everything's good, great, they can just promote it on. If, on the other hand, there's deficiencies that are identified in the code, they can keep that archived environment, pass it back to the developer. Developer can open it back up and very quickly figure out where the deficiencies are and fix them in the code. In other words, we built in a lot of efficiency here that otherwise would have been manual. So the bot says, stand by while I provision your environment. I respond, okay. Bot comes back, says your environment's been provisioned. Here's the VM host name. So it gives me a number there. And then it tells me use RDP to make your connection to the environment, use your MFA login credentials. So it's prompting me to make sure I know what I'm doing and that I can move rapidly into my development environment. And then it tells me your environment will expire in 3 days. And I say, okay. So that was a pretty cool dialogue there that I've driven with a chatbot. And I think you can probably see some of the things that are happening in the background. First off, this operation that I just went through, this bot discussion I just went through, or dialogue, did not involve any people except me. Everything else was done by the bot in the background. Also, what it didn't show was that the bot automatically created a ticket in the department's ticketing system, and it closed the ticket after the environment was created. And then it also, after the environment's archived, it creates a ticket. After the code is submitted, it creates a ticket, and it does all this stuff in the background automatically so that the product will track along. Exactly what we're looking for. And so that helps to do a couple of things. It helps to minimize the cost as well of resources involved in the process. And so as we went through the dialogue, you noticed, and I pointed out, there was a couple of things that the bot enforced. One of those things was configuration management. It only offered me a certain set of standard configurations that were agreed upon with the security team, the ops team, and the development team. It also applied governance around the amount of time I was allowed to use the resources so that it kept them within the budget that was already agreed to. And ultimately, that results in minimizing the cost of the resources by placing time limits on those resources and automatically shutting them down when you're done using them. This ensures the developers are also following the standard set of processes that everybody agreed on. There's much less training required for the developers because the bot enforces the standard processes automatically. As you noticed, the developer's environment was archived, as I said, for QA reasons, and also that the security ops team received a ticket, support ticket, alerting them that the code was ready to go into the code scan phase of the CI/CD pipeline. And so this is all hugely beneficial to the developers and to the efficiency of getting new features and applications developed for the client. Okay, so outside of what we did for that client, I want to talk now just a little bit about what you do before you build a bot, because there's some considerations that you need to make sure you're following. Really, this is just like any other software development situation. You have to do a really good job of understanding the requirements that you have for the bot itself. So what is the bot going to be used for? Make sure you're clear about what you're building and why you're building it. What problems do you intend to have the bot solve? These can be a little tricky if you haven't used bots or built bots in the past. So start with something really, really simple and try to iterate through it a couple of times before you jump in and try to make something super sophisticated. It'll help you develop some experience and skills that will really go a long way when you begin to build more sophisticated bots. The next thing you need to think about, and one of the biggest aspects that is sometimes overlooked, is making sure that you know who's going to be using the bot. So don't sit down and just write a bot without considering the end user, because if you're writing, for example, a bot for a consumer, it's going to be much different than if you're writing a bot for a developer or a technical person to use. And then where will the bot run? Think about the best way that a user will consume that bot. Does it need to be on a mobile device? Does it need to respond to SMS messages? Things like that are all considerations you need to have when you are building a bot. And when you think about bots, there's some things that can overcomplicate bots. You can make them too smart, I think, sometimes. They don't always guarantee happy users when you make a really, really smart bot. They can sometimes confuse people. It's almost better to start out with a card-driven interface, like I showed you with the Thai food website, and I showed you part of the Microsoft Store, had that card-driven interface, which are selections that people can use. Sometimes that helps to improve customer satisfaction because it's much more simple for them to understand. Next is natural language. Although natural language, I think, is really, really good. It lets people use the words that are common to them. I don't have to sort of think them up and try to figure out what people might want to say. Sometimes it can be confusing. However, I think you can do some really good stuff with natural language. You should definitely explore it. Lastly, voice. You can use voice recognition for your bots, but be careful because sometimes voice recognition can cause problems for users who are in noisy environments. So don't always use that. Okay, making sure that you are focused on the end user experience. That is a key critical point when you are developing bots. And these are some common takeaways that I want you to think about, some questions to ask yourself when you go into developing the bots. Do the bots solve user problems with a minimum number of steps? Think about the old website adage, minimize the number of clicks as much as possible. Does the bot solve problems easier and faster than the alternative experience that a user might have? Will the bot run on a device or platform that users want to use it on, not just the one you want them to use it on? And do users naturally know what to do when they're using it? So it's an intuitive interface, which is super important. And then are the bots discoverable or available in the locations where the users will most likely want to use them? These are really key takeaways, and they will improve your success dramatically if you consider them before you're developing your bots. Thank you all for attending. I certainly appreciate it. I hope this was enjoyable, and I hope you learned something along the way. Feel free to reach out to us at Xgility. You can get us at info@xgility.com or just give us a call. Either way, thank you.